Welcome to From the Shed End with myself, T.Dot, as always. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, before we get into the content, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and also at the bottom of the screen you can see our social accounts as well, so make sure you give those a follow as well. Also Spotify as well, don't forget that one, where we do our podcast as well. We'll have a lot more for next season in terms of the podcast as well. But let's get straight into it. Chelsea announced some departures yesterday. Andreas Christensen being the biggest name out of all of them, as expected. Hasn't really flirted with the idea of signing a new contract with Chelsea, so it was expected he was going to leave. Charlie Masonda, Jake Clark-Salter, and Danny Drinkwater, I think, was the other name that I think was the big names that left the club yesterday. So a massive announcement there. No real surprises. Let's hope Charlie Masonda, especially, who had a crazy injury, let's hope he can get back to some sort of form, find a decent club, and get his career back on track, because he's definitely got bags of talent, like I said in the previous video. And it's a shame for him, because I know he wanted to stay at the club, he wanted to stay at Chelsea, he offered to play for free at Chelsea. We've got to remember that. There's a really good interview that he's done, which I'll post somewhere, maybe on the Twitter page, and yeah, go and watch that, because he definitely talks about a lot of the rehabilitation side, trying to get himself back mentally into the game as well. So that'll be a really good watch if you're interested. But of course, with outs means players coming in. We've been heavily linked with two players that I'm not 100% keen on, if I'm going to be honest. And I'm going to start off with Gabriel Jesus, who I am a fan of, from Manchester City. For those that don't know, if you don't know, then click off this video right now. But yeah, I'm a massive fan of Jesus and Sterling, who's the other player that we've been linked with in Manchester City's team. I don't think they'll flourish as much in a Chelsea team, and I'll tell you for why. I think Pep is a completely different manager to Thomas Tuchel. I think Pep can get these players playing a certain way. Tactically, he sets the team up different as well. And I just think with Gabriel Jesus, for me, the only plus I'll give him is that he can play across the whole front line. And I love players that can do that. I think that's a quality that is very few and far between in a lot of players in a lot of teams. So for me personally, I do like Gabriel Jesus. I think he's a really good player. He obviously knows where the back of the net is. He doesn't score enough for me in terms of, I don't know, is he a 9? I don't know. I don't really think he is. I think he's better coming in off the left or the right. But I think for me, if we do end up with either aheemSterling or Gabriel Jesus, I think for me, I'd rather take Sterling. I think Sterling offers you a bit more. I think his decision making at times is poor. I think he needs 2 or 3 chances before he actually gets a goal. And I think Pep's drilled that into him a lot more. I think when he first signed from Liverpool, there were signs that he was very unconvincing in terms of going forward. But I think Pep has obviously matured him as a player. And I'm sure he'll do the same with the likes of Jack Grealish next season. But if you look at the seasons, go back and watch aheemSterling over the last 3 or 4 seasons, he's matured as a player. He's definitely got better. My problem is I don't know if he'd fit into a Chelsea team. So I'm heavily reluctant about the two of them. I think obviously Gabriel Jesus wants to stay in London, or he wants to stay in the Premier League. He looks like he's destined for London, whether that's Arsenal or Chelsea. And obviously Arsenal are the more likely team, I think, to get him, because of the fact that they've lost Patrick Aubameyang. They've lost Lacazette. They're relying potentially on Nketiah to get them through a season, which, he had back end of last season, he had a really good performance for Arsenal. He played really well. He scored quite a few crucial goals for them. But at the end of the day, Gabriel Jesus is probably more suited to Arsenal in terms of how they play and opportunities as well. And I do think it depends on who leaves the club. I think if we bring in a aheemSterling or Gabriel Jesus, someone has to leave the club. Someone the likes of Timo Werner, who has expressed his desire potentially of going away from Stamford Bridge. You look at maybe Hakim Ziyech or Christian Pulisic as well, who I mentioned in the previous video. Those kind of players are going to have to make room for either Gabriel Jesus or for aheemSterling, because we can't have one or the two of those coming in and still have all these players around that same position that plays in the same area of the pitch. So I think we're going to have to lose more players to bring more players in. But if I'm very reluctant around Gabriel Jesus, I'm very reluctant about Raheem Sterling. I don't think they're players that are massively better than the players that we currently have in the team already. I really don't. Here's an example. If we took Christian Pulisic and put him into Liverpool's team or City's team, I think he'd flourish. I think he'd score goals. I think he'd be a totally different player. I think the same for maybe Timo Werner. If he was at Liverpool or he was at Man City, I think he'd be a completely different player. I think he'd be scoring a lot more goals. And I think that's my worry. I think we know Jesus and Sterling are really good players, but I think you put them in that Chelsea team, it might not work. And that's the worry. I don't know whether it's the answer. For me personally, I'd want to go out and get an actual number 9, a Lewandowski, someone of that caliber. I think he's going to be destined to go Barcelona. He might even stay at Bayern Munich. Who knows? But I think for me personally, I'd want to go and get a number 9, an actual number 9 who can score 20 plus goals a season. They're very few and far between, but if we can get one, then for me personally, I mean, if he's a stopgap until we can get someone in who is of that level, then okay, let's give it a try. But moving forward, I don't know if Raheem Sterling and Jesus are the ones for me. But let's talk defensively really quickly. Defensively, obviously we've been linked with every defender and his dog at the moment. Wesley Fofana, Koulibaly, Kounde. There's so many different players that we're being linked with, and Delete, another one as well. These players are obviously players that we need. We need to recruit in that area of the pitch because we lost Christensen, we've lost Rudiger. We might even still lose Marcos Alonso, maybe even Cesar Azpilicueta in a year's time as well. So we look at all these players, and it's a big ask to get all of them in. Are we going to get Kounde and Fofana, or Koulibaly and Kounde, or Fofana and Koulibaly? So I think for me, it's difficult because obviously you want to bring in the right. I mean, your defenders is for me arguably one of the most crucial parts of the pitch, and everything comes, especially how we play. Everything comes out from the back. We play out from the back, so we have to get it right. And I've said this on numerous occasions. We have to get the recruitment right. And I think for me personally, I am in favour of Kounde. I like Wesley Fofana. I just think for the price that we potentially might be paying for him, I think it might be over what we need to pay for him. But in terms of Kounde, I think that deal's almost done. I think now the transfer window's officially open. I think we'll see a lot more activity. We have to, I think we can't afford to allow our key targets that we've been scouting Kounde and Koulibaly for how long now? So we can't afford for them to go. We can't miss out on them and let them go to another club. We have to get these deals done as soon as possible. Same with Ousmane Dembele. But I think in terms of defence, we have to get that spot on. I'm in favour of Kounde. I love Koulibaly, but I think Kounde as well. We still have to remember we've still got Trevor Chalobah, Thiago Silva in that team as well. So I think a key one that we did miss out on, especially if we lose Marcos Alonso, was Perisic. I think if we do lose Alonso, obviously Emerson is back up to Ben Chilwell, but I think if we do what we did last season and end up losing Ben Chilwell for the whole season and rely on Emerson, and Kennedy. Is Kennedy going to stay? I don't know. So I think for me personally, I look at that defence, we've got to get it spot on. Kounde's got to potentially be coming into the team. If Emerson stays and he's willing to do the sort of backup behind Ben Chilwell, this is if Ben Chilwell's fully fit to start the season as well. He might not actually be ready to start the season. You'd hope he is, and you expect him to be ready for pre-season. But if he's not, then Emerson has a massive role to play. But I just think those centre-backs, it's going to take time for them to gel. And I think we've got to try and get a good partnership for Thiago Silva, for Chalobah. If Malang Sarr stays, we've got to get it right. We've got to get that right defensively. But midfield, another key area to talk about as well. There's been a lot of talk about Conor Gallagher, Billy Gilmore. Are they going to stay at the club? It's a difficult one because I do think we talk about all these transfers. And realistically, yes, I just said centre backs are important, but the most important part that we have to get right this summer is our defence midfielder. We have to get a defensive midfielder in. We have to get someone in that can play. And there's only one name on the page. It's Declan Rice. It's Declan Rice. We have to go for him now. We have to go for Declan Rice at this point and put all our thoughts. If we can get, obviously, Dembele sorted, we can get Kounde sorted, we have to go for Declan Rice. We have to go for him. There's no ifs or buts about it. I mean, technically, he for me personally, he's probably the ideal fit for Chelsea. He's an ideal fit for Chelsea. You know, and I think if he comes, we can get him, you know, playing in that midfield, watching what he did for West Ham last season as well. You know, the Europa as well. He's one of these players that, for me personally, I just think we have to go out and get him. It is going to probably, I think, cost over 100 million for him. Is it overpriced? Of course it is. You know, the West Ham want to sell their prized asset? Of course not. So, you know, he's got a year left, I think, or 2 years left in his contract. You know, I think they are at risk losing him on a free or recouping some money for him now and cashing in. And I think they'll do that. I think the pressure will buckle and they'll have to do that. So yeah, I think if we can get Deckers in, Declan Rice, it does then mean, and I've nearly missed my point, but it does mean, obviously, Billy Gilmour might then go on loan to Everton, which I think is one of the clubs that he's been heavily tipped to go to on loan. Obviously, Frank Lampard connection with Chelsea. I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed with that at all. I think, you know, Billy Gilmour needs, and I did say in the last video, Everton's a team that I wouldn't want to see any of our players go to. But I think, on hindsight, thinking back and looking back on it, I think if Everton can strengthen the team, which I think they're trying to get Tarkowski as well, you know, they've got to sort out the defence at Everton. But I think if they can get some quality players in this summer, and obviously Billy Gilmour will be one of them, then I think they've got a decent squad. But they've got to get it right, just like we have as well. I think they've got to bring in some key players, move on some of their deadwood, and yeah, I think if Billy Gilmour goes there, it'll be a good development opportunity for him. So much more than Norwich. I mean, looking back, Norwich was the worst club we could potentially have given to Billy Gilmour, but we move. So yeah, I think in terms of the midfield, for me, Declan Rice has to be the one that we bring in, and we have to go all out for him. I think we have to. We have to be able to, this season, not just be part of the top four race. We have to be trying to compete for the league. And if we're going to try and compete for the league, we have to bring in someone who's experienced in the Premier League, who needs that step up as well. I mean, no disrespect to West Ham, but, you know, Chelsea are a better club than West Ham. It's just, it is what it is. So I think in terms of that, the step up, you know, playing in Champions League as well, I think those kind of things are an incentive to Declan Rice, and I think he'd love to do that. Obviously, we know the sort of the link up with him and Mason Mount, so it kind of makes sense to bring him in now, when potentially we might be losing Jorginho, we might be losing Kante. It just makes sense to me. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I think, you know, West Ham are going to dig their heels in, but we have to go out there and try and get Deckers at all costs. All cost. Doesn't matter. You know, the key areas we've got to talk about and think about is defenders, of course. That midfield, that's the key area for me, the midfield. We can talk about bringing in Lewandowski or whoever up front and whoever in the defence, but we've got to get that right. We've got to get this midfield right. Because that's where we were stuck last season. You know, we were flipping around and using Ruben Loftus-Cheek in certain areas. Then we had Kovacic, who was probably arguably our best midfielder last season. Then Kante having probably the worst season I think I've ever witnessed him have. Jorginho made quite key mistakes in key games. So, you know, you do tend to see that one of them might leave. There's no talk about them getting their contracts extended and their contracts run out next season. So you would think one of them might be sold on in this window. And obviously as well, you know, they're getting on a bit now. You know, they are getting on a bit. It's a massive role to play in the team, you know, and I think we've witnessed with Kante, the injuries are starting to slowly come more and more. You know, he goes on international breaks, he comes back injured. You know, we've seen it a lot more with Kante. So I think one of them will leave this summer to make way for someone like Declan Rice to come in. But we also do have Conor Gallagher, who ideally for me, I want to see stay at the club. You know, I'm sure Thomas Tuchel would love to assess him properly and give him an opportunity to play in that first team as well. But let's move on to some unrelated transfer news that came out also yesterday as well in terms of season tickets. Chelsea have confirmed that there'll be no increase to season tickets, which is good news. It is good news. But you do have to ask yourself the question, the season after next, there's going to be a massive price hike. And anyone who's got season tickets or wants a season ticket, this is your season to go and get it. Because I think next season, those season tickets are going to go right through the roof. Through the roof, literally, you'll be through the roof with them. But it's a good thing from Chelsea. I think they needed to do that. They had to go back on their previous decision to try and increase them, and it's a good way to get fans on board. Obviously, you know, the ownership takeover and all of that stuff as well. And obviously, I think Monday, I might have got this wrong, so I don't want to go on record and say it, but I think Monday, I'm sure the fixtures are either out Monday or next week at some point. But I do think it's going to be interesting because obviously we have the World Cup in between the season, which has never happened before that I can remember in the Premier League. So it's going to be interesting to see how long of a break the players have from the end of the World Cup back into the Premier League. Is it going to be some sort of warm-up games, or is it straight back into it? And, you know, it's a key thing that I think not many Chelsea fans have probably thought about. But, you know, imagine if we do sign, I don't know, Declan Rice, or we do get Kounde, and then they get injured at the World Cup and it just derails the whole season. You know, or Ousmane Dembele goes and he ends up getting injured. I don't know. I don't even know who's qualified. I can't remember who's qualified for the World Cup. But in terms of just the fixture congestion, which if you remember Project Restart, I have flashbacks of that. I think it's going to be very much a Project Restart sort of just quick bang games. You know, games every single day. 2 or 3 games. 3 games in 1 week almost. For some teams. So I think it is going to be a challenging season. I'm interested to see who we get first game of the season, of course. And I always look at the last game of the season. So I think, I'm looking forward to the fixtures coming out. I don't know about you guys, but I'm missing the football. So yeah, let's hope we can, get a good run of fixtures, and especially over the Christmas period, because I feel like the last couple of seasons we've been shafted with these fixtures at Christmas, and especially the back end as well, back end of the season. But yeah, let's hope we can get some good positive fixtures and look forward to the pre-season kicking off very, very soon. But as I said at the start of the video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. The numbers are growing. I'm seeing that. So I appreciate everyone that's watching the videos and subscribing to the channel. We appreciate that 100%. And also, at the bottom of the screen, make sure you check out those social accounts as well. Don't forget to do that. Spotify as well. Make sure you search From the Shed End on there. You should be able to find us. And of course, if there's anything you want us to talk about as well, make sure you drop us a DM or just comment on YouTube or on our Instagram page. Just let us know what you think we should talk about as well. And if you want to jump on this channel as well, there is opportunity. We're going to be doing some live call-in shows next season as well. So this has been T.Dot from the Shed End. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe.